there were some rumors flying around yesterday online that Audley Harrison would be making a comeback at the age of 47. But the headlines were slightly misleading because Audley Harrison was just answering a question from somebody who, as you can see here, asked him on Twitter, will you get involved with boxing again, training or promoting? And Audley Harrison said, I'm toying with the idea. If I train, I'll also have to manage, as I'm not having a manager select the wrong opponent for him/her, leaving me in a bad spot. In 2019, I'll be making some adjustments and likely will return to boxing. Hair business is steady. Good time to pivot. So that's what Audley Harrison has said. Audley Harrison is a very interesting character. From a psychological point of view, if you analyze and try and categorize what he is, you'd have to say that he has narcissistic tendencies. And look, I'm not trying to be horrible or anything like that about Audley Harrison. I'm just, as a non-professional, as someone who studied psychology as an amateur, if you want to call it that, Audley Harrison definitely has some pretty strong narcissistic tendencies. And with that personality type, how effective could he be as a boxing manager or a boxing trainer? I'm not sure. For me, Audley Harrison is far better suited as a television presenter. In the world of media, there are loads of narcissists. There are loads of people with big egos and all that kind of stuff in the world of media. And they're able to ply their trade just fine. Audley Harrison has always been a good talker. He's always been a good salesman. In fact, Audley was, I don't want to say a mentor to David Haye, but he was definitely somebody at some stage, at one stage of David Haye's life, who David Haye looked up to. And in fact, Audley, from a business perspective, was the precursor to David Haye. Yeah, what Audley tried to do with regards to self-promoting and doing direct deals, well, he had a direct deal with the BBC, etc. This was the precursor to what David Haye would do far more successfully years later when he reached world level in professional boxing. So I don't know if Haye and Audley are still on good terms now. Perhaps they are. I mean, they seem to be on good terms after they fought. There was some apparent bad blood, or some people say fake animosity before their fight. But after their fight, they seemed to make up and it was all fine and dandy. And if David Haye was honest, I'm sure he would acknowledge that he patterned his business model on what Audley Harrison tried to do. I guess he learned from Harrison's mistakes and improved upon it. And maybe he learned his sales pitch from Audley Harrison too, because David Haye and Audley Harrison knew each other from when they were amateurs. This is not just a professional relationship. They knew each other from when they were amateurs. And as I say, David was kind of looking up to Audley Harrison when he was a young amateur. And he took a lot of his ways from him. And people will say the salesman business he took from him, and maybe he did. But yeah, in my opinion, Audley would be better off as some type of boxing pundit. Maybe he thinks that's beneath him. Maybe that's why he's not trying to pursue that particular path. And that's where let me not say that's narcissism, because at the end of the day, we all feel like something is beneath us, right? Well, let me not say all, but a lot of us, most of us maybe feel like something is beneath us. For me personally, I grew up poor, in a poor neighborhood. And some of my friends, for their first jobs, they worked in fast food restaurants. I never did. I always felt, even though I came from a poor neighborhood and I was poor, I always felt that working in a fast food restaurant was beneath me. You know, and I'm definitely do not consider myself to be any kind of narcissist. I'm actually a really humble person. I've got an ego, obviously. All right. I'm a man at the end of the day. I'm an alpha male, but I'm not one of these extreme people who feels like they have to win at everything and feels like they have to be revered all the time and looked up to, and that's not me. But Audley Harrison is someone who speaks very highly of himself constantly. Remember when he was a professional, he was talking down about all the competition. That's something I definitely don't do. And again, I'm not trying to make this a me versus Audley thing, right? In terms of who is more humble. No, and I'm not AJ. But I'm just giving you an example of what I'm talking about with regards to Audley Harrison's character. He would constantly big himself up and bash everybody else publicly. This is what he would do. He said he would win a British heavyweight title, I think, within 5 fights or something. And he said, people like Matt Skelton couldn't beat him with a bat in his hand, and so on and so forth. He was just dumping on all the British heavyweights that are around during his time, not giving them any credit and just dismissing them, saying I'm above and beyond all these guys. And this continued, throughout much of Audley Harrison's career. Whenever he'd try and sell himself again after coming back from defeats, he'd say, oh, this time it's different. This time it's because of this and it's because of that. But it was the same old Audley virtually every time. The only instance where Audley Harrison really delivered on his talk was in the prize fighter tournaments, which are very similar to the amateur tournament that Audley Harrison was in, minus the head guards, right? So he was used to that amateur format and far more comfortable in that. And obviously the level of opposition was not that great in terms of who Audley actually fought. But anyway, we'll see if he does decide to become a manager, trainer. I hope he's successful, I hope he's successful. But I just feel like media is the better place for him. Because he is a pretty good pundit. I remember him being a pundit and stuff like that. And look, one thing I can say about him being a pundit is it's maybe difficult for him to not start talking about himself. He might be more narcissistic than David Haye, right? And David Haye, as Dylan White has said recently, he's called David Haye a narcissist. I think David Haye has the ability to not talk about himself in his own career, at least not in a positive light, constantly. Because David Haye, even at the Dylan White Chisora rematch press conference and in the interviews he was doing after the press conference, he was talking about his own career, but he was talking about the negatives of his own career. He was talking about where he went wrong. But with Audley Harrison, even all these years after his career is over, would he be able to go up there on BT Sport, on Sky Sports, and not talk about when I was in my prime this and when I was this? And I don't know. And would that get people's backs up? Because if you take that out of it, I think Audley Harrison's a good pundit. He's a very good talker. He does know boxing. He can analyze the sport very well. I've seen him do it. I think he would be a good pundit. But as I say, his ego, I think, wants the next best thing other than fighting, which is being a trainer / manager, or maybe even a promoter, right? I think, in fact, Audley Harrison should be a promoter, not a trainer or a manager. He should be a promoter. That's what he should be. Yeah. Scrap all what I've said previously in this video. Promoting is what Audley Harrison needs to do. But the problem with promoting, obviously, is because it's a very cutthroat business. And without a TV deal, without a platform, it's going to become very difficult to promote. Maybe he should hook up with David Haye and Richard Schaefer for the ring star haymaker situation. Maybe he should do that, if that's even possible, if David Haye would allow him in on that. Because David Haye's a great salesman. Audley Harrison's a great salesman. They could talk up their fighters, Maybe that's something he might consider. Because, I would say boxing, promoting, or punditry work are a better fit for him than managing or training fighters. I just feel like his ego could get in the way of managing and training fighters, Managers and trainers are not supposed to live vicariously through their charge. I'm sure many of them do, but in order to be most effective, you need to let them the fighter be the fighter, you know? He did speak there in the tweet about not wanting a manager to select the wrong opponent for, you know, his fighter, leaving him in a bad spot. Now, is he talking about, well, he says me in a bad spot. So he's more worried about what's going to happen to him in terms of his reputation if his fighter was to lose, rather than what's best for the fighter. You see that there? He's more worried about his own reputation and how it's going to make him look if his fighter loses. That's exactly what I'm saying with Audley. It's him trying to live vicariously through the fighter rather than doing a job for the fighter, you know? That's the concern that I would have with Audley Harrison being a manager or a trainer. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Again, I'm not writing him off as a manager trainer. Maybe he'll be tremendous in those roles. But my assessment of him as a character would lead me to believe that he'd be better off doing something else. Anyway, let me stop waffling about Audley Harrison here, people. Drop your comments in the comment section below and let me know what you think about this particular story. All right? It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.